Hello and welcome to Sierra Make. Today's video is a continuation of last week's video, so if you haven't seen that one, click the card up in the corner and go check it out. For today's video, part 2 of doing stuff with a giant stuffed bear, I am going to be tearing up the rest of the body of the bear to wear as a coat. The first time I used its head as a hat, and now I'm using its body as a coat. I am just so vicious. Anyways, you may or may not remember from last week's video that the reason I started cutting up this bear was because it had some stains on it, but I end up not having enough fabric later on, and so I end up washing those stains out, and they came out so easily. I should have just washed this bear, but it's fine. It's fine. I like how it turned out. Anyways, the seam ripping took me a really long time to do. You can see the light change from light to dark here while I'm just tearing it apart. But finally, that was all done, so let's go talk about the pattern. The pattern that I used for this fur coat is a modified version of the one that I made for my two-toned jean jacket video. Link to that video is in the card. Basically, I took all of the pieces that I used to make that jean jacket and I simplified it, making it a full cropped jacket instead of half and half. And I made it so that there's just one back piece, one arm piece, and one front piece. I also got rid of the collar and the pockets since it is a full cropped jacket this time. If you are following along with me to make your own cropped fur coat, you can either grab the nearest cropped jacket that you know fits you and use that as a pattern, or you can go online and there is several simple jacket patterns that you can print out and use. Now let's dive into sewing the jacket together. I'm going to show you how to do it with the lining first because it's easier to see what I'm doing. For the lining, I'm going to use this white cotton sheet, the same white cotton that I used in the hat, and I'm just going to cut out my pieces, one solid back piece, two front pieces, and two arm pieces. Oh, also make sure to account for seam allowance when you're cutting it out. And one more thing I want to give myself a little pat on the back for is I actually paid attention to the direction of the grain of the fabric when I cut it out of the lining. I didn't do that when it pertained to the fur, but that's okay. Now that my pieces are cut out, I am just going to sew the front pieces to the back piece along that shoulder line. Now that that's sewn together, I'm going to lay it out with the right side of the fabric facing up, and I am going to pin that sleeve to the sleeve curve on the jacket. You'll see in a moment how I do that, but basically that one round part on the sleeve is going to be pinned to the round part on the jacket. This is different than what I did when I made the jean jacket. I watched a few sewing tutorials since then, and I realized that this was actually way easier for sewing in the sleeve if you sew it before you sew the whole thing together, so you're not trying to sew it into a circle. We're always learning a little bit more and more each time we do a new project, so there is my new tip for you guys as well. Do the sleeves before sewing the whole thing closed. Despite that new tip, I did actually still make a mistake. I made the sleeve a little bit too short, and so it didn't extend to the full width of the jacket arm curve thing. So I just added in a little piece of fabric to cover up that area. Otherwise, the sleeve would be way too small and wouldn't fit on the arm. Anyways, now I'm going to pin along the side of the jacket, along the waist, up to the armpit, and down the side of the sleeve. And that will be one stitch on each side, and then the lining's pretty much done. Way easier than the jean jacket that I'd done before. It's actually kind of crazy because when I did the jean jacket, it took me so long and it was so much of a struggle to sew the whole thing together. I mean, I guess I was sewing jean versus cotton and fur, but even just the multiple pieces of it all, it was really a struggle to put it together. But for this one, it's definitely going by a lot easier. I mean, the lining of the jacket is basically 2 shoulder stitches and then 2 arm stitches and then 2 close up the jacket stitches, which is like really, really simple compared to before. So I definitely recommend a jacket like this if you are a beginner to sewing jackets or coats or whatnot. Alright, there is our finished coat lining. So now it's time to do the exact same thing, but to the white fur of the bear. So here is my beautiful stack of white fur that I managed to take off of the bear. Let's see all of the pieces laid out. Quite a few pieces, but most of these are actually really, really small. Really, the most usable pieces from this bear are those thigh back pieces in the center there. Unfortunately, like I said before, those pieces had stains in the most inconvenient areas. So I decided to test wash a piece of fabric. I didn't wash the fabric in the first video because I was afraid it wouldn't end up as soft. But this piece is where that giant blue stain was in the first video. And as you can see, it washed right out and it's still super, super soft, just as soft as the original fabric. So I'm going to show you where the stains are on the thigh back pieces and then I will wash them out and we can move on.
There's a little small blue one, which I'm pretty sure will wash out because it washed out on my test piece. There is this reddish, can't really see it in this light. Yeah, there you can see it. It's kind of a reddish pink. I hope that will come out too. And then there's also this one, which is like a yellowish stain. And I hope that will come out too, so we'll see. I'm just gonna wash it. So as you can see, I was able to wash out the stains while maintaining the fluffiness of the fabric. So now I can finally use these big leg pieces for the jacket. Let's get started on cutting.
Note to self, try washing the fabric if there's a stain on it. Just do it on a test piece. Maybe it might be really, really beneficial for you in the future. Don't be afraid. I was a little scared to wash fur, but you know what? It came out perfectly soft. So don't be afraid, all of my beginners, sewers, and myself. Fur is not that scary. Just test it first. Anyways, now that I have those thigh and back pieces that don't have any stains and are usable, I am going to cut out the back and front piece of the jacket. I chose these pieces because I'm going to have to sew together all of these scrap bits into something that works for the arm, and I didn't want some weird pattern to show up for the chest or back if possible. Like, if there was going to be a pattern, why not put it on the sleeves? So what I ended up doing was I took these 3 feet pieces, they're the pieces that I got from the bear's feet, and cut them in half, and I also used this long piece, which I think was from the front of the bear, and I used them to make a stripe-like pattern across the width of the arm piece. You can see in this sped up footage, I am cutting the arm pattern as I go along, because then I can just use that same pattern for the pieces on the other side of the arm. So here are all of my strips of arm fabric, which I'm going to pin together and then sew. But one important thing, which I did not do when I was sewing the hat, was I am brushing all of the fur away from that seam so that when I sew it together, none of the fur gets trapped in the stitch. I didn't really think about this when I was sewing the hat, but the fur on this bear was so long that a ton of it got trapped in the stitch and I had to pull it out in the hat bit. So by brushing it ahead of time, I don't have to bother with that and, it will actually look more natural looking. Now I'm just checking to make sure that these strips will be the right length and, the length that I want for the pattern. And it was, so now I'm just going to pin the rest of the pieces to it, sew them together, and then do the same for the other sleeve. Finally, I have all of the pieces I need to sew the jacket together. So I have those 2 arm pieces with the weird stripe pattern because I had to, and 2 back pieces and the 2 front pieces. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sew together the back pieces into one, and then I will do the same thing that I did for the white lining. I will sew the shoulders together, sew the sleeves into the round arm curve hole bit, I don't know what it's called, and then I will sew the whole thing closed. Dude, it's looking so freaking cool. Now that the fur piece is all sewn together, it's time to attach the lining to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this white cotton lining and I'm going to weave it through the fur with both of the right sides facing each other, meaning the seams will be facing outward on both sides, like you can see here. Now that it's weaved together, I'm going to leave a little gap in the bottom of the back of the jacket, and I'm going to sew around the back, up the front of the jacket, around the neck, down the other side of the front of the jacket, towards the back of the jacket, sewing that lining to the fur. Now that the lining is sewn to the fur, I'm going to pull all of it through the hole that I left in the back bottom of the jacket and put it right side out. Once that's done, the last stitches I need to do is to close up that back hole and do the sleeves. I have to attach the lining to the fur of the sleeve and also, hem it so that it's the right length. I don't know if you can tell, but I am covered in fur. I look like I got attacked by a dog or rolled around with one. So here's my sleeve, and as you can see, the white lining is a little bit shorter than the fur, and I'm sure that's because I did the weird stripey thing. But I'm going to flip this inside out and fold up the fur, sew that down, and then I'm going to fold it again so that rough edge of the fur is hidden inside the sleeve. I probably spent the most effort on hemming these sleeves because I didn't want them to scratch or anything on my wrists, but I didn't want the stitch to show since it will be an outside stitch. So while I was hemming the sleeve closed, I separated that fur on the sleeve and stitched down that separation so that hopefully when the fur gets all brushed around, you won't actually be able to see that stitch at all and none of the fur gets caught in the stitch. So that's why I spent an extra long time on this bit here. And I had to do it twice for each sleeve because I sewed it over twice. A lot of work, but trust me, it's worth it in the end. You don't want something scratchy on your wrists. I also really struggled getting the wrist portion of this sleeve wrapped around my sewing machine because it was just barely the size to slide over. So I had to force it a little bit onto the sewing machine to get it to fit so I could sew that bit. You can see I used a little wooden skewer to just separate the fur. I used that because it was on hand, but a hair comb probably would have been a lot better and easier. But you know what? I used what worked, and maybe you don't even want to separate the fur in the first place. It depends on how lazy you're feeling. And there we go. Here is the finished product. Let's put it on. Dang! It looks so cool! Dude, I cannot explain how happy I was with how this turned out. I felt so stylish, so posh, so cool in this white furry cropped jacket. But I gotta try it with the hat on. There it is. There is the look. You can probably tell from the shots of me, but I am feeling dang cool in this outfit. I've got a white furry hat with some ears to match my white furry cropped jacket, all made from a giant teddy bear, all upcycled, all reused, all handmade, and bruh, it fits like a glove. I am freaking cool. Even when I'm dancing around like this. I was worried that the striped pattern on the sleeves was going to look weird or was going to be really uncomfortable, but with the lining, you can't even tell. And honestly, it just looks like it's supposed to be a pattern. It just looks like it's supposed to look like that. I am beyond happy with how this jacket turned out. It fits so well. It's so cute. Honestly, expect more videos in the future where I'm taking another giant stuffed teddy bear to make a jacket of sorts or an outfit of sorts because I am super, super digging this creation and this idea that I've done. I mean, you can tell how happy I am because I'm practically screaming into the microphone right now. Sorry for your eardrums. But remember, this is only part 2 of a 3-part project using this giant fluffy bear. I still have a few pieces of fabric left. So feel free to comment below what you think I'm going to use the last scraps of fabric to make. Go ahead and guess down below what it's going to be. Friday at 3, I will see you. Hit that notification bell so that you can stick with this project. Subscribe because I love you and I hope you love me. Hit the like button and share the love. Send this video to your friends and I will see you next week. Thank you for watching. Transition!